What we witnessed on October 7th, that was not the first attack by Hamas. Prior to that, Hamas killed thousands of Palestinians, of Israelis, and hundreds of Palestinians, and Hamas is responsible for the retaliation and sabotaging the entire peace process in the Middle East. Many call them terrorists, but as a person who witnessed their birth, their development, and the atrocities committed by them today, I tell you something, they are beyond a terrorist organization. They pose as a national, resistant movement with the intention to liberate what's so-called Palestine. And I think this is Hamas' first lie, because they are not a resistant movement. Hamas is a religious, ideological movement raging a war, a holy war, against a race, against a nation. They are not a political party. If they were a political party, then they would believe in political borders. But they want a global state. So there is no such a thing as Palestine to Hamas movement. And all the pro-Palestine group, which of course they have the right to express themselves. I'm not against freedom of speech, that everyone have their own independent opinion. But unfortunately, they are given directly and indirectly support to a savage group that just committed genocide against entire communities. They wiped out everything in their way, killing children, women, raping, burning, systematically, ethnically cleansing a race only because they are Jewish. I saw that firsthand, documented by Hamas themselves. I was not surprised by Hamas brutality, because I lived with them in prison for about 27 months. And if you want to get to know someone, spend with them time in prison for 27 months. They tortured Palestinian people, and that was in Israeli prison, because Hamas had suspicion that some Palestinians gave information to the Israeli intelligence, so they didn't know who was, and they tortured many people in the process. During the time I was spending in prison, especially the first imprisonment, dozens were killed and tortured on the hand of Hamas. But October 7, that was completely different. What they did was, or could be, the worst crime in our modern day. And of course, when people see the war victims happening in Gaza, the free world also don't like to see bloodshed. And people are having a hard time, which side do I take? Is it Palestine or Israel? And of course, we took sides and we created division. But are we seeing things for what they are? Are we seeing Hamas for what it is? A radical, religious movement with global ambition that does not value the human life, that does not respect anything that is different, does not believe in dialogue, does not believe in democracy, does not believe in any philosophy or constitution outside of Islam, outside of Quran. Very narrow-minded people, but in the meantime, very dangerous. On the other hand, we see the democratic model of the State of Israel, a very creative and productive nation that has contributed so much to life. Israel has been extending its hands to the region for more than 70 years, since its establishment, trying to build bridges of understanding, to build peace with the Arab nations. But the Arab nations insisted since 1948, since the establishment of the State of Israel, to annihilate the State of Israel first, before they establish an Arab state. The international community offered the Arabs to build an Arab state side by side the state of Israel back in 1948. But the Arabs refused. They came back in 1967 with the intention to annihilate the state of Israel, and they failed. Israel was extremely outnumbered by the Arabs. Hundreds of millions of Arabs surrounding the state of Israel, newborn, very small state. And when they lost the war, Israel controlled the West Bank, Sinai, and the Golan Heights. Since then, the Arabs have been trying so hard to destroy the state of Israel. 95% of the wars between Arabs and Israel were initiated by Arab countries against Israel, where Israel is always at defense. So we have a big problem. And we cannot just take sides without educating ourselves on what's really going on. Because if we end up supporting savages who just committed genocide, not just a terrorist attack. A terrorist attack usually is committed by a terrorist organization with political hatred. This is what motivates them. But to go and ethnically cleanse more than 20 communities, killing everything in your way, and everything is documented. This is what Israel suffered on October 7th. And this cannot be compared to the war victims in Gaza. And we cannot compare it by saying, okay, we have here 1,500 victims, and there we have 10,000 victims. And by the way, all Hamas statistics, not to be trusted. None of their statistic is accurate. And many of their footage came from Syria. Old videos taken in the Syrian civilian war that they say this is from Gaza. And many of it is fake, because this is their propaganda. And who to blame? The free world started to blame Israel for the war victims in Gaza, but no one is condemning Hamas for taking their own people as human shields. And of course, in my case, I'm not surprised, because even my own father, when he had to choose between Hamas and his oldest son, he chose the ideology. He sacrificed me. He told the whole world, you can kill him. I am not his father, and I will not come after you. So if you want to ask me about how Hamas actually, how much they care about children, their own children, Golda Meir at some point said, when Arabs love their children more than they hate us, there could be a chance for peace. It's a very true statement. And I'm fed up and tired of this entire conflict, just blind hatred towards people who are just trying to coexist in this region. And we're not talking about criminals who came and stole the land. We're talking about legal migrants came under the British mandate in the past century, and they were able to develop the country so fast that they went ahead all Arab countries combined with almost no resources, because the Jewish nation believes in education. And this is their secret. After many years of studying the Jewish people, traveling throughout the world, meeting with their communities everywhere, I saw one thing in common that gives them power, and that's education. While unfortunately, the other side is inciting, teaching children hatred, teaching generations to blame, with corrupt leadership that never took responsibility for anything. So when we look at the origins of this suffering and this conflict, we cannot just see, okay, this is, I'm pro this, I'm anti that. No, it's a lot more complicated. And it's very important for us, before we take sides, that we understand, are we on the side of truth or are we on the side of falsehood? And there is only one truth in this situation. And if it's true, whether if it's true or not, you cannot say nearly true. It has to be 100% true, and everything outside that is false. So I can go on and on for eternity. It's very important to understand before I finish this introduction, and we can move then to questions and answers. And I would like to communicate with you directly to see what's on your mind. And I hope that I will be able to satisfy your curiosity. But before we go there, have you noticed that everybody within the Palestinian leaderships have been asking for a Palestinian state, Palestinian state? but none of them is talking about a Palestinian nation. Because in order to have a state, you need a nation. And all these selfish leaderships, they just want a state. They don't want a nation. Because a state brings power, money, prestige, entourage. And a nation requires selfless leadership, where a true leader has to give up all desires in order to build a nation. It's totally the opposite. And none of those so-called leaders of Palestine, from Yasser Arafat all the way to Hamas, bunch of criminals. I'm responsible for my words. Bunch of criminals that stole people's resources. The most corrupt revolution in history. It's not in their interest to end the conflict because they profit out of it. They know only how to thrive in chaos. They don't know how to create, how to build. They don't like order. If there is no conflict, there is no need for them. This is why it's in their interest to keep it going for eternity. You can give them all the solutions in the world and they will reject it. So we need to understand that these people are profiting from this conflict. They're just using what's so-called Palestinian cause. It's non-existential. It's a broad term that anybody can use. Even the angry mob here in Michigan is using it. Everyone who has a little bit of hatred, they are trying to project through this device called Palestine. This is why I say it's non-existential. We don't know what it is. Anybody from Putin to Mexican cartel dressed up like Hamas, projecting Hamas. Because hate is an ideology. And this is what's in common between them and Hamas. So are we going to allow a bunch of criminals hijack an entire society and we give them support, empowering the predator against the victim, against the prey? That's not acceptable. That's not the way Americans think. And are we going to allow people to spread hatred and anti-Semitism, hating the Jewish people? For what? You know, we need to look around and see the contribution of the Jewish people to the American society and to the rest of the world in every field of life. It's not acceptable. And Israel is fighting for its life. I'm not here to advocate on behalf of the state of Israel. But this is my personal experience, and it really bothers me. Because as long as we are not seeing things for what they are, this conflict will go for eternity. And this is not only Israel's fight, by the way. This is my fight as well. Since I was a very little child, Hamas wanted to destroy me. And I don't want to go through so many details, but the harder they tried, the stronger I became. And it's not coincidental that I'm standing here and I'm fighting against them. And many people accuse me of saying, okay, you're a Zionist propaganda. I say, no, you're totally mistaken. Maybe me and the Zionists and Israel have something in common to destroy Hamas, to eradicate them, because they are very dangerous. And they are going against the evolution of life, of humanity. They don't value the human life. They want me dead. They want Israel dead. They want the United States dead. What else does need to be said about Hamas? I cannot believe that we are even discussing this.